To learn Redux, you need to learn three main things. The things are store, actions, reducers. But what are the things? I'm gonna tell you. Store is the place that we put all our global state. For example, is sign in. The store is something like the database of our state. We can take a slice from our store and put it inside any screen or any component. That's the store. Now actions. Actions are plain JavaScript objects. The actions has two main properties. The property number one is the type, and the type is referred to that action. For example, if I want to make a login action, the type is gonna be login. If I want to add to do, the type is gonna be add to do. That's the type. And the payload, it's the data. For example, if I want to create a login action, I need a data like email and password. And we take that data and pass it to our reducers. What are reducers? Reducers are JavaScript functions. Those functions take the data from actions. They take the type and the payload and update the state depend on those things. For example, in our store, is signed in is false. Okay, that's in our store. The state is false. We want to log in a user. So we can create an action called login action. And the type is gonna be login, and the payload is gonna be the email and password. And we take that action and go to reducer. The reducer is a JavaScript function that's responsible to update the state in our store. So it takes the email and password and run this function or fire this function to go to store and update the state there and make the state is signed in to true, not false, in all the screens of the app, because in the state in our store is the global state in all the app. Let me give you another example. Imagine that we have in our store, for example, 4 to-dos, and I wanna to add one to them. First, I'm gonna create an action called add to-do and give him a payload. The payload is gonna be the title and the body, and we take that action and go to reducer. The reducer take an action, it's something like a metadata, and it takes the type of add to do. The reducer look at the type. The type is add to do, so in that case we're gonna add to do, and the payload is the title and the body. So take that title and the body and add a new to do in our store. So now the state in our store became 5 to dos. If you don't understand me, or if you like those things are difficult to you, don't worry. We're gonna talk about store and actions and reducer in next lessons. So don't worry, the next lesson we're gonna talk about store. The lesson after we're gonna talk about actions, and after we're gonna talk about reducer, and we're gonna type code and update the state. So don't worry if you don't understand anything, or if you think those, or if you think that's hard for you, don't worry. And if you like that video, please hit the like button and share it with your friends or anybody that wants to learn Redux. Thanks for watching. I don't want to waste your time, and at the same time I want to share our code. I mean, the code in your machine is the same at my machine, because that allows us to code together. For that, I have created init repository that contain the code that I have write before, so you can follow me easily. Now let's download our source code that we are gonna use it in this tutorial. You just open the link in the description and download that code. Download. And once you download it, just extract it and let's open it. Now that's our project. I have built in the navigation and 3 screens and the tabs. You just need to install the dependencies. Just type yarn. That's for Android. Let's type yarn start and press A to run Android. And for iOS, we need an extra step, and it's installing the bots. cd iOS bot install. That's an optional for Android and required for iOS. So let's install our bots. Now we have successfully run our app to Android. We have here three tabs: the Profile tab, the Settings tab, and the Home tab. We're gonna type our Redux Toolkit code to manage the global state in that app. Now that's the iOS app. It works perfectly too. Now you have my code and you can follow me. Thanks for watching and see you in the next lesson. As I have mentioned before, Redux Toolkit is simpler, cleaner, easier. And the best part, has a great documentations. In this lesson, we're gonna create our store and reducer and actions and update the state in just one lesson, just using Redux Toolkit documentations. It's very simple. Just type Redux Toolkit and open that link. Let's get started with those great documentations. Just scroll down to install it. I'm gonna use yarn, so let's copy that line and go to our editor. Let's paste it here. Let's install that package too, React Redux. And now let's press add quick start here. Let's scroll down. First, that's our store. Let's copy that code and go in our code. Let's run our project first, yarn start, and let's press I to run the iOS. Now here in our code, let's create a folder inside our src. Let's create a store folder. Inside this store folder, let's create a store file, store.ts, and let's just paste the code that we've copied. Okay, and let's press save. Now we have done with the store. It's very easy. Don't worry about that code. I will explain every line of code, so don't worry about it. You can use JavaScript here if you want to use the store with JavaScript. Look, it's very, very, very simple. But since we're using TypeScript, so let's use it TypeScript. Let's scroll down. After we have created our store, we need to connect our store with our React code using React Redux. So let's copy those two lines of code, the provider and the store, and go to app.tsx. Let's paste them here. Just make that src store/store. That path, you can copy that path using copy relative path. Look. Now let's add our provider, or let's copy it from documentations. We have a great documentations. Let's press save. We got a warning because we didn't make our reducer yet, okay? But our app is still working, so no need to worry. Let's go to next step, and it's the slides. Just copy that code if you are using TypeScript. If you are using JavaScript, press here and copy the code. But since we're using TypeScript, so let's press on TypeScript and press copy. And in our store, let's create a new folder called counter reducer or counter slice, whatever you want. And just paste that code here. Okay. Don't worry, I will explain every line of code. So don't worry if you don't understand anything. Don't worry at all. Let's scroll down. That's our last step. And we just need to import our reducer to use it in our store. Okay? We'll just copy that line of code, or we can make it manually if you want. Just in store, inside this reducer object, just paste it here or type it manually. And counter reducer, we can import it from here. Import counter reducer from counter reducer. And let's press save. Guess what we have done? We have created 3 actions, and we have created our store and our reducer too. And I will gonna show you. If you go to home screen here, it's very simple. Let's just add our use selector const, and let's destruct our object equals to use selector. We just need to import that use selector from React Redux. Import use selector from React Redux. Okay, so now our state equals to road state. We just import that from our store. We have created here our road state equals to state dot counter. We have inside our counter, we have here the global state called value, and it's a number and it's 0. So let's check what we got here. Yes, we got the value here, and when we just put it inside the text, for example, let's use a text here. Don't forget to import it. When we put our count and press save, look, we have here a 0. Let's make it bigger. Look, a 0 here. If we go to our store or to our reducer and make it like 10, it will be 10. It will be 10 in all screens because that's a global state. For example, if you copy that use selector and use it inside another screen like setting screen or profile screen, let's, for example, copy that code and go to profile screen. That's our profile screen. Just don't forget to import use selector from React Redux, and import this road state, and just add a text here with the value. Look, we have here 10. Inside profile screen we have 10. Inside home screen we have 10. Let's please make it bigger. Great, isn't that? And we can change it using those actions. We have here an increment action, a decrement action, increment by amount. We can use it using our dispatch hook. So if you go, for example, in home screen and add a button with title equals to minus, and let's just import our dispatch, const dispatch equals to use dispatch. We use dispatch from React Redux equals to use dispatch. If we just in this decrement on press, if we add this function dispatch decrement, we import decrement from our store counter reducer from that file because we export it here. If we press save, we got here a minus button. Let's make it decrement. If we press here, we forgot to add those parentheses. So let's press save and try again. If we press decrement, look, 764, and it's global state. So if you press on profile, it will be 4. We have another action in our counter reducer called increment. Okay, let's use it. So if we just copy that button, here, and use that action called increment and paste it here. Don't forget just to import it, and let's rename that button to increment. If we press increment, look, we can increase our number, and here we can decrease our number. Here in our profile 2, it's 14. We can use that action too, increment by amount. Let's use it real quick. Let's copy that code and paste it here. Let's add increment by amount, and let's, for example, add 4, and let's increment by 4. If we press here, look, 18, look, 22, look, 26. Great, isn't that? And you can put your global state here in that file, in that reducers, like before. For example, let's add a value called test name, and that's equal to test name. If we just go to home screen and add this, we got here, we didn't add TypeScript yet, so it doesn't appear here. So let's copy it, but it will work. Don't worry about that complaint, I will fix it right now. Let's take a copy of that text and let's paste our test name. Look, test name. Just let's fix this TypeScript issue, please. Let's go to store or count reducer. We have here complement because in our interface we didn't add the type of that test name. So let's add this mark and add test name and it's string. Okay. Now if you go to home screen, if we go to home screen and delete that, yes, we got here right now in our options. Just paste here and press save. And any value you put here in global state, it will appear in all the app. For example, in settings, your name is Batman. No, it's not Batman, it's test name. So we can go to settings screen and const equals to use selector. Let's import it from React Redux. State equals to route state dot counter, and here test name, we can replace it with that username. So now it's test name. Now if you look here and here, if we change our name in our global state, it will get changed in all the screens. For example, let's change that string to make it Redux Toolkit is amazing and simple. And let's press save. Look, in home screen, we have Redux Toolkit is amazing and simple. And in settings screen, we have the same too. Redux Toolkit is amazing and simple. Now, don't forget to subscribe to watch the next lesson, because in next lesson, we're gonna explain every line of code that I have right here. And thanks for Redux Toolkit, this amazing library, and follow me to learn more and more. Thanks for watching. Now it's time to explain every line of code that we have written. To use Redux Toolkit, you have to implement 4 steps. Step number 1 is creating the store. As you see here, that's our store file that we have created. We just need to import this function. Configure store is a function from Redux.js Redux Toolkit. Okay? And you just need to use this function, configure store, and put inside it our reducer object. And inside this reducer, we have our reducers that we have created. And those reducer, we use them to update the state. There is a very important notice. That key here, that's something like the name of the reducer. When you are using use selector, you have to put that name. For example, if we change that, for example, to AAAA, for example, you have to go to use selector hook and change that to AAA2 and press save. So you don't have any problems. Okay, so you have to know that that key is very important to use. Okay, those 2 lines are TypeScript, that to export the type of the state and that to export the type of dispatch. If you're not familiar with TypeScript, don't worry, we have a great course that we're going to upload it in this channel. So don't forget to subscribe and follow me. That was step number 1, creating our store. Step number 2, connecting Redux with React. If you go to app.tsx or app.js, if you're using JavaScript, you'll notice that we have to implement a very important step here. And this step is connecting Redux with React. Using that package, React Redux. This package is responsible for connecting each other. You just have to import the provider and wrap all of React code inside that provider. And this provider take a property called store. And you have to put the store that you have created here. You have to put it inside that provider. Okay? That was step number 2, the connecting Redux with React Native. Step number 3 is creating your reducer. The reducer is the function that's responsible for update the global state. First, you need to import that create slice function from Redux.js Redux Toolkit to allow us to create our reducers. And that's the payload action type we have just imported from Redux.js, this wonderful package. We just import it instead of creating it. Okay. We have here an interface. Interface also is a TypeScript. If we just comment it, we will not have any issues because it's TypeScript issues, so don't worry about it. So that interface, it's define the state, the type of set of our state. For example, we have here the value. The value here is number. We cannot make it any type, not number. For example, if we just make it string, we have here a problem, TypeScript issue. That TypeScript is not assignable to type number because that have to be a number, okay? And that cannot be a number too. If we just make it a number, test name is gonna complain too because TypeScript is complain because we have defined it as a string. But if we just type here a number, now we don't have any issues, okay? If we go down here, we have here our create slice function. As I've mentioned before, it's a function provided by Redux Toolkit to simplify the process of defining the Redux slice. Okay? It takes object as argument that had a name, initial state, and reducers. That name is a string that identifies the slice. In this case, it's name counter. Okay? This name to identifies this slice. So that slice, the name of it is counter. Okay, that's the initial state that we have taken here because we want to make some changes on this initial state, the value and test name. And you can add any global state that you want here because this slice is taking it. The third property here called reducers, and those are our reducers, and reducers are JavaScript functions that's responsible for updating the state. For example, this increment is the function that's responsible for make the state.value, update this value of 10 to increase just 1. So if you just press here, it adds 1. What if you just make that, for example, 5? When we press here, we're gonna increment by 5. Look. 5, 5, 5. And that's another reducer called decrement. And what does it do? It returns our state of value, that value, and it decreases it by 1. You can do whatever you want. For example, you can change the name. For example, state.name equals to HeroDev. Okay? When we press decrement, it will increase the number with 1 and it will change the state.test name to HeroDev. Look. So in our reducer, you can do whatever you want to that state. You can do whatever you want. Just type state dot and you will appear all the states that you have put here and you can do whatever you want. Easy, isn't it? The third reducer here is increment by amount. Look at that. What if I just put here 1? And press an increment by amount. Here, that's the action name. It increased by 1. Okay, what if just type here 4? It increment by 4. Okay, what if just have here the action.payload? Action.payload. It will increment by the payload. What is the payload? Let's see here on home screen. That's our action increment by amount. Any number you put here will increment with that number. For example, let's make 10 and let's press. It increment by 10. Let's change that to increment by action payload. Okay. Any payload that you put here, it will increment by that payload. Because we don't pass here any numbers, but we pass here the action.payload. Okay. The last 2 lines of that file, we just here export our action creators, and those are increment, decrement, increment by amount, and we can destruct them from counterslice.actions because this counterslice has an actions. Look, counterslice.actions. It has actions case reducers, name, get initial state. Now we just select the actions to destruct our actions creators. So if you just counter slice actions, look, decrement, increment, increment by amount. Those are the actions that you can't select any one of them, but we just destruct them from that counter slice actions. And finally, we just export our counter slice. This export is very important because we are using multiple reducers, and we just put them inside that store. We have to import it like that. We have to import it like that and export it like that. Our last step is dispatching and selecting the state. If you want to select the state, you just use the use selector hook, and that's from React Redux. Just use selector and put your state, and inside that state just pick the state that you want. We have here only one state called counter. This key, as I have mentioned before, just give it from that store, from that key. It should be that key, okay? That's the use selector to pick our global state. Now we have here another hook called use dispatch. That's to dispatch the actions, those actions, increment, decrement, increment by amount. And we just create a function like that and put dispatch and put our action here to use our Redux actions. I hope I explained that lesson well. If you have any troubles or any issues, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you in next lessons. In this lesson, we're gonna learn how to get data or to create asynchronous actions using Redux Toolkit. You know that we need to create actions that allow us to fetch data from API or something. We have that API that get us a list of books. Okay, we've used it before in Redux course. Let's try to fetch that API using Redux Toolkit. Okay. So here in our store, let's create box action.ts, and let's export our first action. Export const get box. It will be equals a great method called create async thunk. Create async thunk. We can import it from Redux Toolkit. Okay. This create async thunk takes two arguments. The first is the name of the action, and it's a unique name. Let's make it, for example, get box. The second is an async function. Those are our two arguments. In this async function, we just create our API call. So let's create our API call const response equals to fetch, or to make it simpler, I'm gonna use Axios because Axios is simpler. So let's install it real quick. Yarn add Axios. Yarn start. Okay. So let's use Axios. Let's import Axios from Axios because Axios is simpler than fetch, and I want to make that course simpler. So I'm gonna use Axios. Axios.get, and we just put the URL of this endpoint, that URL. Then let's log our response.data. Okay, to see it. And just return also response.data. Instead of type response.data, we can destruct it like that. Just like that. And remove response dot and response dot. Okay? I think that's cleaner. Okay, and maybe we have some errors when we make this API call. So to detect the errors, let's just put them inside try catch blocks. Let's add try. We're just gonna try that code, okay? If we have any error, just add a catch block. Inside the catch block, let's console.log our error. Okay, let's finally format our code. Now we have done with the action. Let's go and create our reducer. Let's create inside store box reducer.ts. Okay, let's first import our create slice from Redux Toolkit. Let's initialize our initial state. Let's export our slice, export box slice equals to create slice, and we just to add a name. Let's make it box. We forgot to add here a const. Okay, that's the name of it. We have here also the initial state. It will be the init state. Okay. Third, we have here reducers. Let's make it empty object. And here is the key, extra reducers. Those extra reducers are important because we're gonna handle our async actions using those extra reducers. Okay, so let's make it like arrow function, extra reducer, take a builder. Finally, let's just export that reducer. Export box slice dot reducer. Now we have done with our reducer. What's the next step? The next step, just use this builder dot, and we're gonna add case. Okay. In this add case, we just add here the action name. The action name called box action, get box. Okay. So let's get box dot. We have here three options. Fulfilled, that means that we got the data successfully. We have pending. In this case, we're gonna show a loader or something. And we have rejected. Rejected, that means we have a fetch API error. So let's add the first case is fulfilled. What are we gonna do when our API, when we get the data from API correctly? We just add another function that takes the state and the action. Inside this function, we're gonna just update our initial state. Our initial state we have here, box, it's an empty array. Okay, so let's just add state dot box, and it will be equals what? It will be equals the data that we got here from that action. We here return the data. Okay, so here we're gonna equals to action dot payload. Now to test it, we just need to go to our store and add this box slice. Box equals to box reducer or box slice. We have create a default export not named export, so you should remove those curly braces or you are gonna have a problem. Okay, so let's press save and go to home screen. Here we can use our users box from our box here, from our initial state, initial global state. So let's use selector equals to state of type root state dot box. We have here box. Okay, let's just destruct it and see what we get here. We got here the box. Okay, so now let's try to render those box here inside this flat list and see our app. That's our app. Let's press save. We don't have anything. I don't know why. Let's try to log those box to see what we get here and see in our log. It's an empty array because we didn't dispatch our action yet. You have to dispatch your action. So we can dispatch it using any button, or we can dispatch it using useEffect hook. So let's use useEffect hook and just dispatch get box action. And let's just press save. The box data is undefined. Why it's undefined? Let's go to our box action. because we forgot to add here await keyword. I'm always forgot to add this await keyword. Because we use async, we need to add await. Sorry for that mistake. So let's press save. Now we have here our list of box but we have another issue because we didn't complete our use effect. Please make sure you add this empty array to make that effect run one time, not a lot of times, okay? Now when we press save, we got our list of box. The name, the price, the image, and the author name. I know maybe this lesson is a little bit hard. Don't worry if you see that lesson is hard or something. In next lesson, I'm gonna recap that lesson, that action and the reducer. And don't worry, it's gonna be easier than before. Thanks for watching. See you in next lesson. I know that the last lesson was a little bit hard, so I'm gonna recap that lesson quickly to explain every line of code that I've write. To create asynchronous action, to create asynchronous operation using Redux, for example, to fetch EBI, you just need to import this create async thunk from React.js Redux Toolkit, and that access library to create that EBI call. Okay, first we have created our action called getBox, and we use this function create async thunk. This takes two arguments. The first is the getBox, that's to identify this action. It's a key to identify it. And the second is an async function. Inside this async function, you can do your asynchronous operations. For example, get data from EBI. We here using Axios to get the data from that EBI, to get list of box. And we just here return that data that we got from our EBI. And this try catch block to detect if we have errors or something, we can log them here. That was our first step. The second step is creating the reducer. Here, this function we have used before called create slice. We use it to create our reducer. And we just imported our getBox action that we have created here. Okay, we just import it. And we initialized our state, and we create our initial state, and it's a list of box and it's empty. Here inside create slice, we just give this slice a name to identify it. Then we give it another property called initial state, and this initial state we just take it from here because we're gonna make changes to this initial state, and this is gonna be the global state that we can use it using useSelector. Okay, here our reducer, those reducers, if we want to change the global state but without any asynchronous operations like we have done before in our counter reducer, just you can put your functions that take the state and update the state. But we are just using asynchronous operations, so we left it as an empty object because we don't need it. But we just need this new property called extra reducers. This extra reducers property, we use it to handle asynchronous actions. It takes a builder as an argument. Inside this builder, you can add any cases that you want. You just put your action that you have created, and when you put your action, you can get a lot of cases. For example, fulfilled or rejected or pending. This pending, you can show loader or something, okay? So just here, when our action got fulfilled, we just update this state, the list of box, to the action that payload. What is this action payload? That action payload is what we return here. When we return inside this action, we just return our data that we got from our endpoint. If we return here any array of numbers, for example, this action payload is gonna be array of numbers, okay? But we just return our data that we have got from our EBI call, and this data is list of box. So we update our list of box to this data. You can add any cases that you want. For example, let's copy those 3 lines and paste them here. And if you want, for example, add a loader, you can create here an initial state, a loader, and initialize it with false. And here, getBox, in case pending, you can create that loader, state.loader with true. Because when this action is pending, when I'm getting the box and takes a time, just make a global loader that we can use it here. And we have another case called rejected. Rejected. You can, when it rejected, you can get list of box. It complain here because when it rejected, it got no action.payload. It got no data because it's rejected. So you can make it an empty array and the loader is false. And here also you should put the loader is false because the data is fulfilled and do not need to show that loader. It was a quick example if you want to create a loader when you are fetching your data. Don't worry, we're gonna create that example in our app. So let's delete all of that. I was just showing you that we can use another status instead of fulfilled, okay? The step number 3 is the store. You here created your reducer. You just put it inside your store because inside this store we save here our global state, okay? So you should to import your reducer and put it inside our reducer here in the configure store function. And finally, you just go to any screen that you want and just use useSelector to get the data that you want using useSelector app. Just return your state and put the key inside your store. For example, counter or box. And our last step is dispatching the action. This action called getBox that we have created here. We just dispatch it to call this endpoint and get the data. When we get the data, we go to box reducer and save it inside our box state, global state. So we can import it from here using useSelector. This lesson was easy, not hard. If you have any question or something, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Let's overview the app that we're gonna build using Redux Toolkit. That's our app. It's a food app. Those are the products or the main dishes. We have here 0 products in the cart. If we press here, we add 1 item to the cart. If we press one more time, now it became 2. We can add 1 of that and 1 of that. When we press on the cart, we find here 2 chickens and 1 pizza and 1 burger. We can increase and decrease from here too. If we get the sum of those, 2 plus 2 plus 2, those are 6. If we go back, look, those are 6. So you can press here and create your order. That's your order details. Look, if you are just notice, we are playing with the global state. I mean, inside all the screens. For example, let's create another order. The items here are 5 and in another screen are 5 too. And the price here, it will be the same in orders too. Look. So that will be our app that we're gonna create it using Redux Toolkit. We're gonna create async thunk to get those data from the back end, and we're gonna use Redux Reducer to manage the global state. So let's download that app from GitHub because I don't want to waste your time building the UI. So I will give you the code. So let's download it together and run our project. Now let's download our code. You just gonna open your browser and just copy the link from description and paste it in your browser and press save. You will find this repository. Just press on this code and download zip. I assume that you are a beginner and don't have any experience with Git. So if you have an experience with Git, you can clone this repository using that code using command line. Okay, so now let's download it. Now let's open our file. Open this folder inside VS Code. You just need to install the dependencies. Just press yarn, type yarn and press enter in the command line. Let's install our bots. Let's press npx. This step is optional for Android, okay? Bod install to install our bots. Okay, and now let's run our project in Android. You're on start. A to run it in Android. Let's close this and close this and close this URL. We don't need it anymore. Perfect. Now that's the project in Android, but it doesn't work. No buttons are working and those data are wrong. So we're gonna fix those using Redux Toolkit. Let's see our iOS. We're still installing our pods. After installing the pods, we're gonna run it. As you've learned it previously in this tutorial, inside src, let's create a folder called store. And let's install those two packages, yarn add, react, redux, and Redux Toolkit at react.js/toolkit. Inside our store folder, let's create a file called store.ts. I don't want to waste your time. I've done those steps before, so let me do it real quick, and I will show the code after I finished. Now I have done with the store. As you see, I'm just imported the configure store from Redux.js toolkit, and I've created a constant called store with the configure store. Here I'm gonna put the reducers that we're gonna create. I'm gonna put the cart reducer, okay? Now we just need to connect our store with our React code. So in app.tsx, let's add a provider. We import it from React Redux. As you see here, this provider take a property called store, and we just select our store that we have created. That's store, and let's press save. We have here warning because we didn't add any reducers yet, because our initial state, we store it inside our reducers, okay? So now let's create our first reducer, and it's gonna be cart reducer.ts. The reducer is like the store. I have created a video that describe how to create a reducer, and I don't want to waste your time, so let me do it real quick, and I'm gonna show the code as I have done with the store, okay? So let me do it quickly. So now I am done with our cart reducer. You can take a look here. I'm just imported the create slice and the payload action because I'm gonna need it when we type our TypeScript code. That's the initial state, and it's an item or cart items. It refers to all the data that we're gonna put here in our cart. And to create a reducer, we need to create a slice. We need to use this function and give it those three properties: the name and the initial state and the reducers. We're gonna update the state using those reducers here. If you see those things are hard, please go back and check the video of reducers in Redux Toolkit tutorial, okay? Now let's go and import this reducer to our store to hide the warning, okay? So let's import it. Import cart reducer, and let's give it a property name with cart. Now let's press save. Now we have created our store and our reducer. Now to update our state, we need to create our actions. The first actions that we're gonna create is add item. We need to create 3 actions, and those actions are add item, remove item, clear cart. Those are the 3 actions that we're gonna create to manage the global state here in this app, and to create our cart here and manage those prices and those numbers. Okay, so don't miss the next lesson that we're gonna create add item to the cart. Now let's add our global state to our first button. This button has a 5. Let's open a food screen called food screen. You can find it in screens, food screen. If you have a look here, you're gonna notice that we have here a 5. If we make it 10, it became 10. That's totally wrong. We want to make that number the number inside our items here, inside our cart items. Okay, so let's use our use selector. Let's go here. Const equals to use selector. State goes to state dot. Let's add our root state type to help us, and to use TypeScript that is gonna help us to show those options, and in destruction too. So we have here the items. That is an empty array. Okay, we just go down here, and instead of type 10, let's just type items dot length, and it became 0 because we got nothing in the cart. If we go to the cart and add any object, it became 1. If we add another object, it became 2. So now let's make it empty, this global state to be a 0. And when we create our actions, we're gonna update the items, then this number will get updated. Okay? In this lesson, we're gonna create our first action, and it's add item. Okay? So let's create it. Add item. It takes 2 parameters, state and action. And when we fire this action, we're gonna update state dot items to push our action dot payload. That payload is this item, the price and the title and so on. Now let's save and let's export that action, and let's try it. We're going to our food screen. Inside our food cart component, where's our food cart? Yes, here it is. We're gonna dispatch the add item in this onPress function. So let's import our dispatch, const dispatch equals to use dispatch. Okay, so now let's dispatch that action. It's called add item, and we're gonna give it this item. This item contains the title, price, and the image. Okay, let's add it here. Now let's try to add an item. When we press here, I've added it, but when we press again and again and again, he added 7 times, and that's totally bad. I want to add it just 1 time, and when I press here, the product appear and the quantity is gonna be 7. Okay, so let's first show our products here in our cart screen. Okay, so in our order list component, order list, you can find it inside src components order list. Okay, let's use selector. We can copy it from here to get our items. Just don't forget to import it, and to import the type too. Okay, and let's replace this data with these items, and let's press save. Now we got here our data. Look here, that's our data. When, for example, let's add this French fries. Now it appears here, but the price is none because we didn't add the price, and those are duplicated. How to solve those 2 problems? First, let's solve the problem of the price. Okay, so let's go to our cart reducer and add this important step, and it's gonna be sum equals to action dot payload dot price. Let's press save and try to add a product. Let's go. Now we have here the price. Let's add another one. We have here the price, but we have still our problem. Those are duplicated 3 times. So we need to create an if condition here. If the product exists, just increase its quantity. Don't add it, just increase his quantity, okay? So let's create this constant called isExist equals to state.items, this array of items that contains those, okay? Because it got updated because we pushed a many items, okay? So this state.items, those items, dot find. Find what? Find the item.id equals to action.payload.id. This ID come from our items, those that have an ID and that have an ID and that have an ID. I want this ID of that item equals to the ID of action.payload. Where we got that action.payload, we got it from here. From here, when we add item, we pass that as a payload. So we pass this item and this item has an ID. So this ID of this item from this data, okay, when it equals to the items in our cart, so we identify that he is existing, okay? So let's create our condition. If he exists, just do something. Else, just push it as a new one, okay? If he exists, do something. If he is not exist, push it as a new one. Okay, what if he exists? If he exists, just add its quantity and its sum. So it's gonna be isExist.sum, add to it, plus equals, that mean add action.payload.price. Just add the price that we got here when we dispatch an action. Let's press save and try. We got an error here. Just remove that sign. Okay. Now, if he exists, just increase its price, but please don't add it again. Okay. So now let's try. Let's try to add this kebab. Great. I have pressed multiple times and he just add a one product to the cart, but we open that cart, we got a lot of prices, okay? I mean the sum of it. We can use KFC. When we press one time, we've added one time. When we press again, look, this number isn't updated. And when we press here, we got the sum of it. And because we just increased the price, we here increased the price, we didn't push it again. If we use this function, we push it and we got it duplicated. But if he exists, just we add the price. Now let's add the quantity. The quantity will be like the price. When we add it at the first time, the quantity is gonna be 1 because we add it for just one time. But if he exists and I want to add it again, so let's add another property called isExist.kty, I mean the quantity, and add action.payload.quantity, or you can add 1. Now let's try. Let's add KFC one more time and press here. We just have one KFC. Let's make it 2. We just hear 1, but here we have 2. Okay, let's just add 3 French fries. 1, 2, 3. We have here 2 products, but when open here, we have here 3 French fries, and that is the sum of the price. Don't worry about those red warning, it's a TypeScript issues. Let me fix them quickly, and in TypeScript course, I'm gonna explain all of them. So let me add our TypeScript quickly, please. Now I have added interfaces, TypeScript interfaces. Don't worry, I don't want you to get confused or hesitated if you are a beginner or you don't familiar with TypeScript. Don't worry, I will create a great tutorial with React Native and TypeScript that you will understand all of that code. So don't worry about that green code, those just fix those TypeScript issues. Okay, now we have created our first action, add cart, add item to the cart, but we have here a bug. That number, it must be the sum of those two numbers, and we want to add here a space and to make those two buttons work. Add here and remove here. So don't miss the next lessons, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel because we have great lessons. Thanks for watching. See you in next lesson. In previous lesson, we've learned how to add to the cart. But if you notice here, those two buttons are not working and that number is static and not refer to the sum of those two numbers. And also we want to add some space here. So in this lesson, we're gonna make this button work, the plus, and we're gonna handle that number too to make it get the sum of those two products and add some space here. And in the next lesson, we're gonna learn how to remove from the cart. Okay, let's get started. In our new order screen, here in SRC, screens, new order screen. Now we are in new order screen. We're gonna use this function to add to the cart and use this function to remove from the cart, okay? So inside handle item add, let's dispatch our add item action. So let's use our dispatch first. This equals to use dispatch. Okay, and inside handle item add, let's dispatch our action. That action is dispatch. That action is called add item. We have used before in the previous lesson. We have created before in the previous lesson, okay? And just give him the item. Where we get this item from, we're gonna pass it as a parameter and take it as an argument from this function. So on add, let's create here a function and just pass the item here as an argument like that. Okay, let's press save and test. If we press here, great, we can increase. Press again, great, we can increase here. And here too. Look, we can increase the quantities. Now, let's fix this number. I want to make this number, this 20, equals to the sum of those two numbers, okay? Let's search for this 20. Yes, that's the 20. It's a static value. If we just make it 10, it will be 10. We want to make it the sum of those. So let's use our reduce method. Reduce is a JavaScript method that allows us to get the sum of numbers from array of objects, okay? So let's create a constant called const total sum equals to items dot reduce. What are those items? We can get those items from our global state. As you've learned before, we can use selector. So let's create a const use selector. It takes the state of type root state, and we're gonna return state.cart. And inside our cart, let's pick the items. Okay, so now we get the items from our global state. So now let's use our reduce method. Reduce ACC. This ACC is referred to accumulator. This accumulator that accumulates the results. Okay, so now our first argument is the accumulator, and the second argument is item. Item here refer to each item of those items. Okay, what are we gonna do from those items, or for each item? We're gonna return our accumulator, and we're gonna just increase it with item.price. Okay, and we want to return the initial value. The initial value is gonna be 0. Okay, now let's press save, and let's take this total sum and go down here and replace it with 10, and let's see. Oh, that's a big number. We have a bug here. Look, that's 99999. It's not well formatted, so we need to format them. So to format them, let's use our fixed. Okay, so let's use to fixed and just put 2. Now it looks much better, isn't it? Now let's try to test. Let's try to reload our app, and let's try to add this KFC and this French fries, and let's see. Perfect. We can get the sum of those two items. Let's increase by 9.50. We got a bug here. I know where the problem. We add the accumulator to the price. We need to add them to the sum, not to price. Okay, so let's press save. Now it works perfectly. Now let's test again. Let's reload our app. Let's just add 3 of that. 2, 3, and let's go. Great, the sum is perfectly correct. Let's add 2 of that. Okay, the sum is correct. Let's try to increase from here. It got increased here too. Look, let's add 28. Great, it worked perfectly. 38, not 28. Let's try. Now those are the sum. 47 plus 197 equals to 244. The sum is perfectly correct. Just don't forget to add here the sum, not the price. It was my wrong. Sorry for that mistake. Okay. Now our last mission in this lesson, to have some space here. It's the easiest thing that we're gonna do in this lesson. Just let's add a save area view. Save area view. Let's wrap it from here. And let's format our code. Let's test it in Android. Because save area view works only in iOS, okay? That's our Android app. Let's test it. Let's just add 3 of them and 1 of that. Great, the UI is perfect, the sum is correct, and we can add here and add 2. Great, everything works perfectly in Android and iOS. Wait for the next lesson. We're gonna learn how to decrease, how to make this button work. Thanks for watching, and see you in next lesson. In previous lesson, we've learned how to add item to the cart. In this lesson, we're gonna learn how to remove item from the cart. So let's create our remove item action. You can copy that line of code, just copy it and just close this curly braces. Okay, and let's rename it with remove item. It takes the state because we're gonna change our state, and it takes action because we need the action.payload. The payload is the item because the action.payload contains the quantity and the price, and we need the quantity and the price because we want to decrease this price too and decrease this quantity too. So we need the state to change it, and we also take action.payload to use this payload data. Okay, what are we gonna do here? We're gonna just change our state.items. State.items, it's gonna equal what? We're gonna just filter it. For example, state.items.filter. What are we gonna do? We have here the cart items, and this cart items has the IDs of this French fries and the ID of this mini dish. Okay, we're gonna take item.id and compare it with the action.payload.id. The action.payload.id, we take it when we dispatch that action. And if the item.id not equals to the ID from payload.actions, we're gonna filter the array. We're gonna return the whole array, but we're gonna just delete the ID that is selected. So let's take an item equals to item.id. This item.id, we'll take it from our array, from this array. We want to filter it not to be equal action.payload.id. .id. Okay, we're just making that filter. So now let's try to add some from that and some from that and some from that and go for testing. Let's just copy this action name and go to new order screen. Here, new order screen. In this property called onRemove, we'll just dispatch that action. Let's dispatch the remove item action. Just don't forget to import it, but we cannot import it here because we didn't export it there. So let's go to our cart reducer and just copy its name and add it here. Now we can export it. Okay, so now let's go here and import it. Now we can import it from store.cart reducer, store/cart reducer, and just give him the item. Okay, and where we got that item from, we just get it from here. We're passing it as an argument. Okay, so now let's try to test. Let's add some from that and some from that, and let's go and testing. Let's press here. Oops, now we have a bug here. It removed all the item. I want to decrease it by 1 and decrease this price of this item.price, not decrease all of them. Look. So now in our cart reducer, we need to create a condition. What is this condition? We're gonna see if the item is exist or not. If it's exist, decrease it by 1. So let's create our condition. We've created here before in our add item action. So let's copy it from here. Don't worry, I'm gonna describe it. Const is exist. Is the item exist in the cart or not? We're just gonna state.items, I mean all the items of the cart, and we're using the find method. This find allow us to search with the ID. If the ID of action.payload from that item is equal to item.id of the cart, if the action.payload.id equals to the item.id of the cart, please make this is exist true. Okay, so let's now create our if condition. If it exists, do something. Else, remove it. Let's just format our code. Now, what are we gonna do if the item exists? We're gonna just decrease its quantity and the price. Here, when we add an item, we just increase the price and increase the quantity. But here, we're gonna decrease them. Just, we can copy that and decrease it here. For example, is exist dot quantity, make it -1. I mean, decrease it by 1. Okay? And also, is exist or exist item dot sum, just decrease action dot payload dot price. Decrease it by its price. Okay, now let's press save and test it. Let's go here and add some of that and some of that. And let's go to the cart and test. Let's press here. Great, it's working. Press again, it's working. But now we have a bug. See what will happen here. See, it became 0. Look, it become -1, -2, -3. It doesn't make any sense. We have a great bug here. So now how to solve this bug? We need, this condition needs something else. What's this thing? I'm gonna tell you. We want to create in this condition if the item is exist in the cart and the quantity is not 1. I mean, if this quantity 4, just decrease it. And if it's 3 or 2, just decrease. But when it's equals to 1, please remove it. Because if this one and I press here, just remove all the item. So let's add to this condition. Just make sure is exist dot quantity is not equal to 1. Okay? And let's press save and let's test again. So now let's add some of that and some of that and let's test. Let's remove. Now it's equals to 1. When I press here, it should be removed. Look. Great. We have removed that item. Let's test that again. Look. Great. Now we have successfully implementing our remove item action in this app. Let's just format our code. I hope this lesson was easy to you. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button, and see you in next lesson. Now we can here add to the cart. Look, we can add to the cart, but we have an issue here. If we close our app and open it again, where is what we have been added? Our cart is empty. Look, let's add again and see, and close our app and open it again. Look, the cart is empty. The number of items is 0. So we need to persist our state, because when I add something to the cart and close the app and open it again, when I open the cart, I able to see my items, and my items are not be removed. Okay? To do this, we're gonna use Redux persist. So in our terminal, let's install this beautiful package. Yarn add Redux persist. With Redux persist, we need also to install async storage. So let's install async storage. Yarn add React Native async storage. You can get it from the link in description. Okay, now let's go to our store. Here inside our store, let's open our store and make some changes here to able to persist our state. First, we're gonna import our storage from React Native async storage. Okay, then we're gonna import two things from Redux persist. Those two things are persist store and persist reducer. Okay, that's to persist our store and that's to persist our reducer. Okay, now let's create our configuration. Const persist config. In this object, you can tell Redux persist which thing do you want to persist. Okay, first we give it a key. Let's call it root. Then we give it a storage. You can pick any storage you want. Here we are using async storage, so we can select that storage. And since we're using ES6, we can delete that. Okay, and let's add our version. Let's make it 1. Our next step to create our persist reducer. So let's add a constant called persist reducer equals to persist reducer. Let's make this persisted. Okay, and we just add our configurations and our slice or cart reducer. Okay, here in the second parameter or second argument. Our last step here to export our persister. Just let's export const persister because we're gonna wrap it inside app.tsx equals to persist reducer, and we're gonna put inside it our store. Sorry for that, persist store, not persist reducer. Persist store. Okay, let's press save. We got an error here. Async storage. Oh, I know. If you're using Android, you'll not notice that error. But we forgot a very important step in iOS, and that step is installing the bot. So let's install our bot. You can make it like that. npx bot install. I'm happy because I'm facing those errors in the lessons, so you can fix them with me. After we have done with our bots, let's yarn iOS again. Let's run our app again. Our last step here, just replace this cart reducer with our persisted reducer. Okay, now let's press save. Don't worry, when we rerun the app, this error is gonna be gone. Now let's go to app.tsx and wrap our code inside our persister. So let's import our persister gate, our persist gate. You can import it from Redux Persist Integration React. Okay. Let's format our code, and inside this persister gate, just add our persister that we exported here. That persister. So let's copy it and paste it here. And just don't forget to import it from our store. Now let's press save and test again. Okay. Now we have here 5 items in the cart. Let's close our app and open it again. Now it's still 6. Let's make some changes here. For example, let's make this one and this one. Let's remove this chicken and remove KFC and remove mini dish. Now we have 3 items: French fries, pizza, kebab. Okay, if we close our app and open it again, we still have 3 items, and those are French fries, pizza, kebab. Great, isn't that? But if you notice here, we have here an issue. Look, when we close our app and open it again, we have here an error called an unserializable value was detected. How to solve this problem? After I have searched about this issue, I have found a Stack Overflow question with a great answer that solves our issue. Okay, so now this link in description, you can find it, don't worry. Now to solve this problem, just import those constants inside our store, our Redux persist. Just import them here, flash pose persist those constants, and go down and copy this middleware. So let's copy it and go to our code and just paste it here like that. Now let's format our code and press save. Now error should be gone. If we close our app and open it again, the error is gone. We can add whatever we want. We can persist our state, and we don't lose our state, we don't lose our cart, and we got no errors. I hope this lesson was easy to you. Please don't forget the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. Now heroes, I have a task for you, and I know that you can do it. Look, this task is add order. When we add to the cart and order now, I want you to handle the order now button and display list of orders here. The source code is provided in description, but I want you to make it with your own, because you have to know that you are not be a good developer until you develop things with yourself. I don't want to get you in the tutorials hell or the courses hell. You have to implement it by your own, and I know that you can make it. And if you have any struggles, just open the source code. Source code is provided. Open my GitHub from the link in description, and you can see my solution. But I hope that you can do it by your own. Okay? At the end of this course, I hope that I could explain Redux Toolkit and make it easy for you. If you like my content, please share it with others, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. and see you in TypeScript with React and React Native course. Thanks for watching.